my friends. I am Rick, and this is your seat at the table, and we are looking at a more in-depth expose on Warrior in Guard, Volume 1 of the Warrior Trilogy, the series of books that really establish the solid ground history of Battletech and the Inner Sphere and what's going on in this particular era, circa 3025 to 3030 something. And if you're new to the game system and you've never read these books, I highly recommend them because it really opens the windows to the what's fors, why fors, and where things have been and how come some of the politics and the mindset of the various houses function and work the way they do in later generations. And it makes for an excellent read. Like I've said many times before, of all the game systems I've played and owned, BattleTech is the most closely tied to the written lore or the novels. The novels are engines for the game. They work very hand in hand with the designers and creators, depending on regardless what companies running the show at the time. And unlike other game systems where you get stories, novels set in the universe, but and do have some impact, but not as to the level that you see in BattleTech. And so we're starting with what they call Book One. The novel is broken down into four books or subsections, and we are looking at 27 November 3026. Justin Allard, son of Daniel Devon's head of Milo, is set up by parties unknown. Justin's training battalion is attacked, and he suffers very serious wounds, including the loss of his arm. He's told he won't pilot a mech again. 10 January 3027. In an attempt to discredit Justin and through him his father and Hans Davion, Liao racist haters are assisted or prompted by, and it's assumed, Hasek Davion, who seek any method to question Justin's loyalty, basing it upon his mother Liao's heritage and his command abilities. He is put on a trial that is a farce. At the height of the trial, Prince Davion intervenes. An exchange of words occurred between Justin and the prince. Justin is stripped of his father's name, his commission, and is banished from the Federated Sons after denouncing the Federated Sons and Hans Devon personally. Meanwhile, 10 October 3027 on Tharkad, Simon Johnson, head of the Lick, at the behest of Archon Katrina Steiner, locates a suitable double for her daughter Melissa. A plot is formed in order for Melissa to become better acquainted with Hans Davion, her future husband. She is to travel to New Avalon in disguise while her body double replaces her at her mother's court. 1 January 3027. Yanagi Kurita, long disgraced cousin of Takashi. Let me rephrase it. 15 years before in Mallory's World, Yuriagi, a Kurita cousin of the coordinator, fought and killed Ian Davion, Han's older brother. But before his victory was complete, elements of the mercenary unit Kellhounds intervened. Yorinaga and Morgan dueled. Something occurred that made Yorinaga concede the field to Morgan. He resigned his position, requested permission to commit seppuku, and was denied. He went into exile in a monastery. Now his lord and cousin Takashi has a mission for him: to form an elite regiment of battle mechs trained and to operate under his particular style of combat. 20 February 3027. This begins, quote, Book 2. Disgraced and banished from the Federated Sons, Justin Xing Allard arrives on Celeris 7, the game world. He connects with the owner of a single mech stable, and it's down on its luck. That is down on its luck. Persuading its owner to become his partner, Justin is determined to prove he still has what it takes and to make a name for himself. To do so, he, quote, defies the local mob whose had ordered his, quote, partner to purposely throw the match. Justin Xing's success, 20 February 3027. Justin Xing Success also draws the attention of the local Davion champion and his crew, who are determined to quote, beat this Leal traitor. In the match, Justin is set up against, he easily beats Wolfson and one of the members of Capit's crew. Offering the man a chance to surrender, Wolfen refuses due to a combination of bad advice from Capit, his leader, and having a substantial bond against surrendering. Wolfson forces Xing to destroy his mech, which then Wolfson is forced to eject, starting some bad blood. When it is announced that it was Justin Xing at the controls and not the original owner of the mech, it draws a lot of attention, including that of Gray Norton, a fixer and pilot who originally led the ambush that cost Xing his arm and his command. Norton, feeling a bit guilty for what had happened to Justin, meets and befriends Xing, introducing him to the local Solaris fighters and Sundre. During this meeting, Justin is also introduced to a lovely lady known as the Contessa, the bored daughter of a Federated Sons minor noble. Unknowns to everybody at that moment, she is also an agent for Milo and Justin's father. 1 March 3027. Meanwhile, on Pacifica, in the Lyran Commonwealth, members of the Kellhound's command staff pursue a plot of their own. En route to visit the Archon of the Lyran Commonwealth, Arden Sartek, the Federated Con Prince's closest friend and advisor, and Andrew Redburn, a former junior officer of Justin's Xing's training battalion, arrived just in time to join a quote trap. The Hounds, aware that a Cretan mech company had secretly been inserted on the world weeks before, have staged a ruse of their own. And I think I might have this one just a hair off, just a bit wrong, because let me get this. Originally, Cretas enter the system and are raiding the planet, and the Kells catch them in a trap and destroy them. And it's actually a ruse because a ruse because they use the opportunity the Cretans use the opportunity to insert this mech company that will later quote ambush and destroy the Kellhounds. Although the Kellhounds people do kind of figure out that something wasn't quite right, that there had been a drop ship that is, quote, supposedly landed in the swamp and then took off again and didn't appear to have left anything behind, but turns out they don't buy into it. Okay. All right, it says, instead on the workplace, 4 have staged a ruse of their own. Everyone has, quote, fun messing up the Korea's supposed surprise raid, destroying them in detail. Back on Solaris, 20 March, Xing is confronted by the local mob, and because of his actions and quote, victory over Wolfson cost them a lot of credits, and a lot of others a lot of credits. Xing then sends them packing, further enhancing his reputation. He is then introduced by Great Norton to Xing Zhang, a quote, a spy for the Capellan Confederation. That same night, Norton discovers that the Contessa has Milo connections. 10 April. Sortek and Redburn arrive on Tharkad. And meet with the Archon and her daughter. Redburn is also introduced to several young ladies of the court who are, quote, friends of Melissa, including one that is a double for Melissa. The dashing young officer and mech pilot makes a hit with the ladies. Later, Surtek and Redburn are let in on the secret of Melissa's double, Gina, and the purpose of the ruse. Elsewhere in the Draconis Combine, 15 April 3027, Karita Yornaga, while observing the handpicked members of his newly formed Jin Yosha, is introduced to a sharp young man who had traveled halfway across Krita space, who had once served under him while he was on Mallory's world in command of the second Sword of Light. Accosted by the ISF liaison officer as a traitor, it is soon revealed that Nirmasa Asano, who had served under Yorinaga at the Battle of Mallory's World, is also his son. When Yorinaga had been, quote, disgraced, so too had been his family. So basically, his wife committed seppuku, but to keep his son from following the path, his wife's father, or his grandfather, quote, adopted him and saved him, because he was very young, and gave him his name, which by doing so gave him an opportunity or an out. So some 20 years later, he now wants to serve under his father once he heard that the Genyosha had been formed. Under instructions from the coordinator, it was decided that no past officers or mech warriors who had served under Yorinaga was to serve in the Genyosha, which was the reason for why the ISF agent had done what he did, or liaison did what he did. 20 April 3027, Solaris 7, Justin Xing discovers Norton Gray's connection to the raid on Kittery that had cost him his arm, his command, and his house. Later that day, Justin also faces off against Wilson in the arena for a second time. His main weapon jams. One of the things that Justin had done to try to give himself an edge was he modified his Centurion, which he calls Yin Lo Wang, and traded out the arm-mounted, I believe it was a PPC, don't quote me on that, for a 20-shot Pontiac or Potomac autocannon, which is a mech killing machine. But to do this, he sacrifices most of his secondary weapons, and he's at risk. And this is where one of those things happen. The weapon feed for the ammo feed for the weapon jams, and he's unable to utilize it, so he's forced to think outside the box, but he still wins the match. That same night, Justin then confronts Lady Sorensen about her spying for Milo, basically Justin's dad. In the process, he injures her badly, but not fatally, and sends her packing. 24 April, on Tharkad, disguised as a teacher, the first... I'm trying to pop back and forth between these little images, too. First trip off-world, Melissa Steiner begins her trip to the Federated Suns. Hidden programs within the booking and customs computers flag her as a possible match for the air designate, and thus copies are spun off and sent automatically to, quote, certain interested parties. At the same time, Andrew Redburn boards the same liner heading home, escorting, well, I guess he was supposed to be escorting Melissa, not Melissa, but Misha Auburn, but I don't know that he actually did. Keep in mind that this is just a cursory overview of the novel and a little bit more detail. So if you really want to really understand and enjoy the story, you really have to read the book. 5 May, Solaris 7, Jessica Xing discovers that Gray Norton has been approached by an agent of Otto Lestrade seeking to, quote, divert a dropship from its planned course. Included within the offer came a passenger list. Norton assures Xing that more than one source would be interested in the list, and that good money could be made for selling the information. Right. 5 May, on New Avalon, Hans Davion, with a baron of an unknown lackey of her brother-in-law present, is brought up to speed on Justin Xing's public wins, anti-Davion comments and rants on Solaris. Hans, knowing that the good baron is in the pocket of his brother-in-law Michael, tells the spy master to offer great rewards to the Davion champion if he can defeat or even kill Xing. Quintus also informs the prince that earlier intelligence on the raid that had wounded and disgraced Xing had been incorrect, that Xing had indeed been ambushed by a rifleman. In front of the Baron, Hans offers to recall Justin and pardon him. Quintus, with Michael's mouthpiece agreeing, tells Hans that it's too late. His son wouldn't return or accept any forgiveness from the prince. May 3027. On board the dropship Silver Eagle, a disguised Melissa Steiner finds herself assigned to the same table as Lieutenant Redburn. They discuss Xing's public actions and comments. The conversation goes poorly. 5 May 3027. On Solaris, Maskavakra agent Xing Shang, lets himself into Norton's office only to find the information broker and retired champion dead with a broken neck. Across the street, Xing burns the passenger list. Burns the passenger list after he witnesses Zen's leaving the office. Now we travel to Book 3. 6 May, Solar 7. Xing Shang confronts Xing over Norton's death. Xing admits the deed and then informs Shang that the passenger lift was a scam, one meant to lure the Confederation to acting on it, and that he had done the Chancellor a favor by destroying it. 21 May 3027. The jump ship carrying the Silver Eagle suffers a quote failure of its FTL coolant system. The quote problem is discovered by the son of another jump ship captain who was sent aboard to help figure out their problem. The staged event allows Clovis's mother, Danica Holstein, to offer to help the damaged jump ship captain keep its schedule by ferrying the Silver Eagle onto its next stop for a modest fee. Unknown to the captain of the Meridan, Clovis and Danica had been hired by Great Norton to hijack the Silver Eagle. Once the dropship has been transferred, the conspirators jump the ship, making its transit almost immediately. The dropship captain realizes something's wrong. They emerge from jump near an asteroid in the wrong system. 23 May 3027, Luthian, capital of the Draconis Combine. Subhash Iridar, head of the dreaded ISF, informs Takashi Kurita that the information has come telling of Melissa Steiner's secret travel and arrival in Combine space. A quote chance comment made by a Comstar's Menando Waterley, presenter of Durion, and quote the future premise of Comstar that causes a lot of problems for Comstar and everybody else down the road. Presenter Darion has basically tossed him a bum. Subhash briefs the coordinator on the Silver Eagle situation. Takasi sends the Genosha and his cousin along with an ISF strike team unit to capture the Archon designate. 22nd May, Solar 7. Xing faces off against the Davion champion Philip Cabot, who attempts to lay claim to Norton's place in Valhalla, a prestigious nightclub. A challenge is issued pitting Xing against Cabot in the arenas. 23 May, Styx. Lieutenant Redburn and, quote, Joanna Barker and Captain Brenegg meet with the captors Danica Holstein and her dwarf son Clovis. Captain Holstein informs of the arrival of several jump ships and inbound drop ships, one of which is clearly a troop hauler. Jonah Barker then reveals herself, shocking everyone present. Clearly, the Cretans are here for one thing, Melissa Steiner. 24 May, Pacifica. The Kellhounds celebrate retirement of a favorite tech. Just then, the previously, quote, hidden Kurita attack force launches an attack. Combine troops attack the Merc's base, but are repulsed. But more additional mechs are inbound, i.e. the Genosha. 25 May, Styx. Melissa leads the defense of the asteroid base against the ISF Dest agents. She is racked by doubts in her abilities and by fear. Redburn challenges her to step up and lead. As the assault begins, the Genosha begin their approach. On the asteroid base, Dest troopers overwhelm the defenders. Redburn is wounded, and Melissa and Clovis Holstein barely avoid capture by escaping into the vents. Exiting the lower in the base, they find the wounded Redburn, only to be confronted by a mech, quote, a panther, which leads us to Book 4. Or Part 4, as they call it Book 4. 26 May, Durion. The Kellhounds evaded the Kurita forces sent after them by jumping into the Combine system. See page 220, see 281. So there's something in there I wanted to share because it's of interest with you. You know, if you've listened to my earlier videos, you know I have a particular bone or gripe about jump ships in general, specifically numbers of them and things like this. So there's a nice little part, if I can find it. Right here it says, Salome shiver. What happened to the ships? We don't know, Janos said with a shrug. But Patrick Kell leans forward. We do know, however, that it's possible to use our in-system engine to power up the KF drive. Kat smiled slyly. So we'll jumpstart our KF drive and leave here before it is theoretically possible for us to be gone. The Zirconas will be left assuming we died in a misjump. Patrick nodded slowly. There it is. Dan shook his head. I don't like it. If we try this, we are likely to die in a misjump. He turned to Janos. What happens if the KF drive quits? Can we fix it? I doubt it, the captain sat down. The Cumulus is more than 300 years old, and it's worked if the translations of early Karita logs are correct, like a charm, since its maiden voyage. All the while, the ship has been hopping between stars. No one has to rediscover what makes the KF drive tick. If it goes, we stay here. Fitzpatrick lead back until Karita comes for us. So basically keeping in mind that, once again, here's an example of longevity of technology and the short-sightedness of the inner sphere in various eras. The KF drive, for the most part, nobody knows how to build new ones. They do not know how to enhance the existing ones. It's not until the Helm memory core is discovered and distributed, and people start doing some deep research, along with the later arrival of the clans, which really inspired more research and development, that we start rediscovering that lost knowledge. So, on average, the inner sphere combined, all the houses together, produce maybe at best a dozen to 2 dozen jump ships a given year. So, any loss of any jump ship is terrible. They're already vastly decreased numbers. If you go by canon, the canon suggests that there are less than 2,000 remaining jump ships available to humanity outside of the clans and Comstar, period. So that's spread between all the houses, all the merchant operations, all the privately owned, all the mercenary owned, all the outer, the periphery houses and powers, and the bandits, and so on and so forth. Which, as I said before, and I've done a whole video on it, I don't buy it. The numbers just don't support themselves. But this particular comment reinforces, this particular jump ship that the Calhouns depend on for transport is slightly over 300 years old and has worked perfectly in that 300-year period. So the drive itself has worked perfectly. And that's because, it's well made and nobody abused it. So this is to hot jump a jump ship is risking things on many scales. The least of which is getting stranded somewhere because your engine quit. The worst of is the total destruction and loss of the jump ship, and of course anybody attached to it as well. So anyway, 26 May, Darion, the Kellhounds evade Korean forces sent in after jumping into quote combined space. Hot charging the ship dry, the Kellhounds discover that they've been followed. A Karita jump ship arrives and cuts loose an Overlord dropship that burns for their position. 26 May, Solaris 7. Justic Zine takes Grey Norton's rifleman, intending to use it in his duel with Philip Caput. Later that same evening, the duel takes place in Ishama, or Stone Mountain Arena, a maze of tunnels and chambers. Caput cheats by bringing 2 of his associates to help him defeat and quote kill Xing. 26 May, the Kellhounds make a hot jump and enter the Styx system, only to find several combine ships. Combine jump ships are already there. They also spot a number of mechs, pantsers mostly, on the surface of the asteroid. The Kellhounds decide to engage the Korean forces to give their jump ship a time to recharge. In the process, Daniel Aller, Justin's brother, encounters Melissa Steiner, Clovis, and a wounded Andrew Redburn. Acting quickly and at great risk, the Kellhounds move to help the Archon Designate escape the Karita's forces, or escape the Karita trap. Patrick Kell, leader of the Kellhounds, drops his mech into the sky base and engages the Genosa mechs, while the Kellhounds at dropship burns for the mercenaries' jump ship, pursued by the ISF troop transport. May 26, Solaris 7. Justic Zine outmaneuvers and destroys Caput's companions, and then sets a trap for the Davion champion, and then wins the duel. After the fight, Justin is drugged by Xing Chang and loses consciousness. 26 May, Styx. The flight of the Kellhound's dropship and the second hot jump from their jump ship succeeds in convincing the Karitas that Melissa has escaped. During the conflict, they also realize that Uranagi Karita has returned from exile. The Kellhounds also witness a second event, whereas, like his older brother Morgan, Patrick Kell seems to be invincible to targeting system or visible to targeting systems and invincible to anything but Yoriga's attacks. This is quote. This is something they call the Phantom Mech ability, a phenomenon that is closest thing to supernatural powers in the BattleTech universe. This has also set up a lot of debate over the years as to whether or not it's something that should be utilized in the game as an acceptable thing, because it's, to me, it. Keep in mind that when Michael Stackpole wrote this book and this story, the game itself was fairly new. The lore, the universe, the mechanics, everything was very new and was in early development. We were really just getting started in those days. So they were possibly introducing something that might have had some impact later on, or opening the window, because it's not the only quote supernatural power stuff available. You talk about the quote Kai, that inner power of the ability. Certain people seem to have an unnatural or a real knack for focusing everything on what they're doing, or on combat, or those people who just physically take themselves to the next level. And then there's a handful of individuals that just seem to have all the luck in the universe. But there's no established in canon or out of any true supernatural power, no magic, quote speak. It's not needed. We have plenty of stuff going on to make this game very enjoyable. We don't need to add additional fluff. And that's just my personal opinion, of course. In the process, a duel breaks out between Yorinaga and Patrick. Yorinaga's Warhammer manages to destroy Patrick's Victor. The Kell commander is mortally wounded. In retribution, Dan Allard kamikazes his Valkyrie into the Warhammer, and in the process is badly wounded. Later on board the Silver Eagle, Melissa tells her cousin, the dying Patrick Kell, that of her pending marriage to Hans Davion. And that brings us to the epilogue. 10 June, Cyan. Justic Zine meets with Maximilian Liao, who congratulates him for his victories on Solaris and his stance against the Federated Suns and Hans Davion in particular, and then offers him a pretty important job. This brings us to the end of the conclusion of Warrior and Guard. Now, just on a personal note, this took me a minute. I have a small notebook literally filled with stuff that I went back and I tried to glean the most important facts from the novel to give you a bigger, wider view without verbatim reading the novel for you. And there are others out there who are attempting to do that sort of thing on YouTube, and my hat's off to them. I don't have that kind of time, let alone that kind of patience and a vocal knack. It really takes some people with some skill to read to you an audio, to create an audio book in my mind. And then there's also some other issues from a quote legal perspective. This basically is just an expanded overview of the book and the story. But as you can see or you can hear from what I was saying, just how this sets up the beginning of the Fourth Succession War and how we're leading into it. Of course, there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more other elements, other novels and stuff that connect to these, also further the story and further the backstory reasons for what's coming for the war, the what's called the Fourth Succession War. Now, I have also created a brief on the second book in the series, which is Warrior Repats, and I'll go ahead and post it too, just for fun. And if this extended version of Warrior and Guard gets enough views, shows enough, there's enough interest in it, I will probably do something similar for this one, and then the third book in the series is too. Anyhow, this is Rick, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Till next time, keep your Plasma hot.